everybody. Welcome to a brand new season of Montclair. I'm your host, Shane Paul Neal. Before we get into this episode, I want to start off with a huge thank you to everybody who has supported the show thus far. We were fortunate to receive 3 awards from the New Jersey Press Association, and that went along with 23 more awards that Montclair Local won as a whole. That kind of journalistic excellence starts with your support. And to that end, it would be terrific if you could subscribe to Montclair Local. It only costs $10 a month, and with that, you get a printed edition sent to your mailbox every week. And you help support the show in the process as well. So by all means, please support and subscribe. This month marks the 50th anniversary of the DLV, one of the most storied jazz lounges in Montclair. So we thought it'd be a great idea to sit with the owner, George Marable, as well as musician and jazz historian Bruce Tyler, and discuss the history of not just the DLV, but of jazz in Montclair as a whole. Side note, by the time you see this, the DLV will have had their 50th anniversary celebration already, but they intend on celebrating that anniversary for the entire year. So don't hesitate in stopping by, saying hello to George, and just enjoying the vibes. The conversation I have with George and Bruce ends up being a very complex and nuanced one. It's not just about jazz as an art form or Montclair's love for the music, but it also digs into Montclair's history of dealing with race, culture, and class, and how it has evolved from the 1920s to now. To be clear, Montclair's history with race and class is a flawed one, and is far removed from what most of us strive for this town to be today. But it's these conversations that help make sure that we don't backslide into what we once were and propel ourselves into what we could be. Enjoy the show. Everybody, so I'm here with Bruce Tyler, who is a jazz percussionist, as well as a historian who has spent a lot of time archiving the history of jazz in Montclair. And I'm also here with George Marable, who is the owner of the DLV Lounge, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. How you guys doing?
Okay.
Right.
Doing great.
So I want to start with kind of a big question and answer as best as you can.
Yeah.
Montclair and jazz kind of go hand in hand. It's kind of woven into the DNA of the town, which for a place like Montclair, some folks might find unusual. Where, in your estimation, did jazz and Montclair kind of marry and become, synonymous?
Well, jazz in Montclair, the history of jazz has been around since the, 1920s.
Yeah.
Early. I know there's
20, 30, 40.
There used to be a speakeasy in Montclair.
Mm-hmm.
It was running around 1920 something.
What was the name of it? Or did it have one?
I don't know.
That's how you run a good speakeasy. Don't give it a name.
Yeah. Well,
keep it secret.
The funny part about it, I always heard rumors about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I moved to the building, I was friends with the superintendent, and he took me down. He said, "Yeah, man, you want to see where the speakeasy was?" We went down there, and actually, some of the glass they still had from one of the raids or whatever was still down there.
Wow.
Yes, the building is right on the corner of Claremont and North Fullerton.
Okay, I know what you're talking. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, there was a speakeasy down there.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about you, George? What do you think makes Montclair and jazz sort of run hand in hand?
It really, if you stop and think about it, when I say Montclair, let's say I'm familiar with Montclair basically from the late 50s, okay? And some of the best known artists that you can think came through the Sturgeon House. And as you see, I have some of the pictures of some of the different artists, such as Arthur Prysaw, I forgot the name of the
Count Basie.
Count Basie. Yeah.
Johnny Lytle.
Yeah. And what's his name? We just talking about it just now.
Ed Cherry,
Ed Cherry,
Big John Patton.
John Patton.
Big John Patton.
Big John Patton, yeah, they all played at the Sturgeon House. And what was so funny about at that time, we had, there were 3 black-owned places in Montclair. We talking about the 70s, okay? We had the Sturgeon House, you had DLV, and we had the Willow.
The Willow, right.
Yeah. And
Right.
many of those artists you used to have on the wall there, they would play at the Sturgeon House. But when they would take a break, they would stop, come by here, come through here, and they would also go up to the Willow, on the break,
Right.
So you can probably name, some of the ones that came through there, This is during the 70s, because we started in 1972. But many of them during that time, they would stop in, chat, when the Sturgeon House was open.
So they would play at the Sturgeon and hang out here after, essentially?
Yeah, during the break and things like that. And they would stop in occasionally and meet different people, That's when we had 3 black-owned liquor, or establishment right here in Montclair, on the avenue.
Mm-hmm.
On the avenue. Within 2 blocks of each other. 1 block, 2 blocks of each other.
Right on the corner of North Willow.
Willow.
Yeah, which is 1 block up, actually.
1 block up and 1 block this way.
Yeah.
Now, DLV opens in 1972.
1972.
And it was your parents who had opened.
It was my parents, yes. And that's when we opened here. But a lot of people from Montclair would know that my parents we had bars in Newark before this, in the 60s.
Okay.
We had a place called 571 Lounge on North 7th Street in Newark, and people from Montclair would come down from here, especially on the weekend, down there. Because again, my father, by being from Montclair, he really attracted a lot of his friends and people in the community would come down to 571 Lounge in Newark. So I ain't really been involved in this type of business actually all my life before I could get involved. Because my grandfather in North Carolina, my uncle there, he used to have what they call a beer joint.
Okay.
So this is more or less in my blood, and not even knowing that it was, just, that kind of thing.
So it's going to be my next question as to why your parents decided to open a DLV, but this is just one in the line of.
This is really, that's it, exactly. It really is just one in the line of ventures that he was involved in. Yeah.
And the original intention was for this to be a jazz lounge, or?
No, not really. It was just a lounge. We call it a lounge, and it was a place you have, to hang out for the community. Mm-hmm. And it was a lounge before they bought it, and we just continued to along that line, And in terms of jazz, when my father died, and he died in '82. And at that time, I just decided to kind of like gradually change over from a regular, let's say just a regular lounge bar, started having entertainment, and that's when I got over to jazz, because we tried karaoke, and it really wasn't my stick, because karaoke seemed to attract more of a younger crowd. And at that time, I was becoming more older.
Right. Okay. You're grown.
Yeah.
Grown.
Yeah. And so I had gotten tired of the of the active crowd,
right?
Because we all were young at one time. So anyway, I gravitated to jazz, and I really always liked jazz, but. That's how I really got into jazz, and it was more my stick, the jazz type thing, because it attract more of an adult crowd,
right?
One that appreciated music, want to hear music as opposed to dance to the music,
right?
That kind of thing.
Awesome. Bruce, tell me a little bit about the archive you built in terms of documenting the history of jazz in Montclair. First of all, how did the idea for that come about, that you wanted to start creating an archive?
We had there was a project that was developed between Paul Brown, and Glen Ridge, who was a renowned photographer. Paul Brown was a producer.
Music producer or?
Television producer.
Gotcha.
Him and I actually had the same anthropology professors at Montclair State. And we formed the Montclair Jazz Project because I had approached the township of Montclair and I wanted to do a photograph of the jazz musicians in Montclair.
I'm sorry, how long ago was this?
2003.
Okay.
2003.
Okay.
It was November. God, I can't remember the date. I think it's November 17th.
The fact that you get that close is impressive enough, because I wouldn't.
Yeah. But what led to that, I had been thinking, somehow this strange thing came over my mind. Montclair, there's no real history of jazz here. And I started thinking about the Black history of Montclair. You know, how well documented is this? And which led to the music thing. I'm thinking, wow, you know. And I started thinking about, well, how am I going to do this photograph of jazz musicians in Montclair? And that's where it actually stemmed from, me thinking about the Black community of Montclair. And so I approached the director of Parks and Recreation, Paul Ellis at the time. And I said, I'd like to know, you know, can we do a photograph of the jazz musicians in Montclair? So he said, well, I don't think we have enough money to do that. We can't really do it. So, well, I knew that idea was gone. So I was like a little bit depressed. But then I was talking to my friend Paul Brown one day, and we actually were across the street from the library. We were talking, and I told him my idea that I wanted to photograph the jazz community in Montclair. And he looks at me and he says, "Oh,
right.
You know, I'm a producer. I'm a TV producer." And Glenn and I, you know, and I knew Glen Ridge, he's a, you know, renowned photographer. And so Paul said, "Let's do it." So I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah. You start calling people." And I said, "Okay, yeah, I'll start calling people." And we did it like in 3 or 4 days. We arranged this whole thing. Out of 100 people, I've managed to get 50. We had Andrew Cyril, which is one of the great drummers. We had Corky Caldwell, which was one of the great musicians, organist, pianist that came out of Newark. So anyway, I developed a form. We filled everything out with the library, and we went into partnership with the Montclair Public Library to do this. And so we did it, and it turned out really, really well, you know. So that was the first part of it. We got the photograph done. And then from there, it morphed into an annual, we decided to give awards to different people in the jazz community. And
what kind of awards?
You know, like a regular certificate type award.
Like for lifetime achievement or?
Achievement, actually contributions to the Montclair jazz community. And then it morphed into like, well, let's have an annual jam session. Then it even went even further, where we had a film series and a lecture, and it just grew, and it lasted. Oh God, for 4 years, about 5, 6 years, you know. But then the workload got really heavy, and I ended up either taking on or just stuff got dumped on me, and I'm like, wait a minute, whoa, this is wait a minute, you know, it's getting out of hand. I can't even keep up with what I was doing on a normal basis, let alone, you know. So then what happened was the idea about a jazz archive came up. So I started thinking, you know, wow, there's not too much documentation here. And I had a lot of stuff in my house from playing in jazz clubs and stuff, and you know, I mean, I played a whole bunch of other places other than Montclair, but I had a lot of stuff from Montclair. Newspaper articles, all kinds of stuff. So I said, And, you know, I moved a couple of times. I said, you know, this stuff's going to get damaged. So immediately, I had a lot of stuff and I gave these folders to the library, and they named it the Bruce Tyler Collection. I got a whole
wing.
They got a whole drawer full of folders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was cool. But then I had this idea. Wait a minute. Why don't I make a separate jazz archive? And we had I developed subject files and biographical files.
Mm-hmm.
So I developed index cross-reference systems and numbers. It took me about 3.5 years to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I did it all by myself. We developed a deed of gift. I gave it to the library. We signed the deed of gift. And it's a working research archive. So we did both biographical and subject files on like places like trumpets, the DLV. We got a file on DLV, various artists in Montclair, and people who played in Montclair, not just Montclair residents. The archive started out, there was 50 people.
Mm-hmm. So
the original filing system of the biographical files were just for the 50 people that appeared. And then it started expanding little by little.
You've amassed quite a collection as well of jazz memorabilia and different things.
Yeah, and I was thinking too, I was talking about the jazz, history of jazz in Montclair. You know, I from my point of view, I think when I started thinking about jazz in Montclair, I think it really started thinking more or less about the black musicians, black places in Montclair. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Bruce May can address that when the Stirtown started, but I'm quite sure it didn't start prior that much before the jazz I'm talking about in Montclair until the Stirtowns came along. I'm not sure when the Stirtown was open,
The Stirton House was the focal point of the club, but the jazz community's been here since oh my God,
I'm quite sure quite a while,
since the 20s.
Private places, you know. Yeah, but we as black people didn't have that venue until the Stirton House.
Yeah,
you know, on a broad scale. I'm quite sure people had it in I should say hidden place, but secluded places. Yeah, you know.
Well, you know what was really interesting was there was an art exhibit. The Montclair Library has a wall. They have art exhibits and stuff like that. You probably know that. I was walking down the line and I saw a picture of a 1920s, maybe even older, Dixieland band, Montclair, all black.
Wow.
And I was like looking at this, and I'm going, wow, this is really interesting, you know. And I'd never seen that picture before, and I tried to get to the library to ask them whose photograph. Can I get the number? And nobody could give me the number.
Yeah, and I'm quite sure like a lot of those places they've mentioned it from Montclair, but they either played in Newark or East Orange and Orange, those kind of places, because that's where most of the black population went, especially black places. And I'm quite sure some of the more the white establishment places had music and jazz, but it wasn't really known as black jazz. You know?
Yeah.
So, question on that end, being as somebody who's coming into Montclair and owning what would eventually become a jazz lounge, we talked a bit when I was here the other night about segregation and the landscape of that in the town, especially in the course of these jazz spaces and spaces for folks to hang out. Can you talk a bit more about what the landscape was in terms of, white establishments, black establishments, where, black folks were going versus, where the white folks were going at that point?
Well, again, just this place here alone, prior to my family ownership, very, very few black people used to come into the place. A lot of the places in Montclair during the 70s, early 70s, when black people came in, they would break the glasses. They would literally,
so that's a circle.
Yes. Let you know that you were really welcome.
That's a hell of a signal.
Yeah. We like to think that but that's where it was.
Right.
That's where it was. This is during the 60s and 70s. Okay, this place was known as Genetti's, I think it was.
Genetti's, yeah.
And well, it wasn't just here, but what all over Montclair, and that's where it was. Again, but at that time they had the Willow Cafe, and then they had the Sturgeon House. And Sturgeon House was they were known to have their different known musicians there, and so at least they had those two places to go that we were welcome to go. Again, there were certain places like Strands was the name of one of the places.
Strands.
Yeah, you went in there, it would serve you, but you weren't really welcome. Again, they were known to break the glass.
Was there a resistance to your family coming in and taking over this space at that point in time?
Not really. And one of the main reasons, because my father was he was a fixture in this town. He knew most. He knew a lot of people, and that was one of the main reasons why we were able to. He was able to to buy the place, because he knew a lot of people in Montclair. He's from Montclair, born, raised, died, and buried in Montclair. So he's Montclarian in and out. So but then when after they bought the place, they a lot of people gravitated to mainly black people at that time, and usually at that time, again, because of the time where it was, if you saw a white person in it then, you knew he was a real close friend,
right?
Or for some other curious reason.
He just didn't, or they just didn't know.
Exactly. But that's one of the things where things have changed.
Before your daughter reaches through the camera and kills me, DLV stands for
Dutch. That's my father's nickname. It was Dutch. My mother was named Louise, and my daughter's named Valerie. Dutch, Louise, and Valerie.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really what it is. It doesn't say George.
So can I ask that question? How did the G get left out?
They didn't ask me. They didn't ask me. Mine would have gone some other route. I would have called it Brooks, whatever. But they didn't ask me. I think I do remember they asked for my input. I gave them some name, I don't know. But anyway, you swear far away. It didn't go too far. So probably because it came up to Dutch, Louise, and Valerie. So that's how it came about.
Because you and I aren't musicians, but we're fans of music.
Yeah.
Coming in, owning a space that's dedicated to jazz music, how have you seen the fandom evolve in Montclair?
Well, it's strange. I right now, I see more. It's so diversified now. Population, everything has really shifted, has changed. A lot has happened. The pandemic has changed things. One of the biggest changes, I feel like I know, is that the impact that the train has that goes into Manhattan. So many people are moving from New York, Brooklyn, the Bronx, all over New York City, and moving to Montclair. And with them, Montclair, New York seems to be a little more aggressive, acceptance and that whole kind of thing.
Right.
People, and things have really changed, and for me, for the better. And many of them seem to be more into the nightclub type of atmosphere.
Yeah, it even goes back to what you were saying earlier about this being a place to listen as opposed to dance.
Yeah.
I used to hang out here before the pandemic. I would come in every now and then, grab a drink and chill out. Yeah. And even come back the other night, it felt like pretty much everybody here had always been here. Like, this is the spot for the locals.
Yeah.
I was even surprised to see, even in terms of age, because you said you were opening space, that was a bit more for the adult side of things.
Yeah.
When I came in, there was 3 guys here. They couldn't have been more than 23, 24. Yeah. Just chilling, hanging out in the corner, having a good time, and just like chatting and hanging out.
Yeah.
I don't know I'm going with that question.
It's okay. It's okay.
No, but it's just, so in terms of like That's what it is. In terms of the influx of, especially during the pandemic, everybody came from Brooklyn, Manhattan because of pricing and everything else. This space still feels very much local. Are you seeing people coming in from the city who are coming here as well to hang out and catch the music?
I see it more and more, and they seem to be coming in for the first time. Also, a lot of professional people coming in. Some. I as I mentioned earlier, I grew up in Newark, and like for instance, Donald Payne. He's a personal friend. Matter of fact, Donald Payne was my high school coach at high school, and his son, Donald Jr., and Bill Payne, his brother, and his son comes in now. He just pops in, boom, boom, boom.
Right.
Just to chill, have a drink, and boom. So it has changed from that point of view. A lot of my friends, which are doctors, lawyers, and that kind of thing, up there. So, and that's one of the main reasons why I kind of changed the vibe by going into jazz music, because again, we wanted to get away from I don't mean away from the younger crowd, but it brings a different atmosphere, the type of music. That's why I had to get away from the karaoke and that kind of thing.
Bruce, in terms of the archive, you've accumulated all these years of memorabilia and information and history on jazz, not just in town, but jazz, essentially, period. Is there a through line or a lesson that you see that connects all those dots, or what do you get ultimately when you look at the depth and breadth of that archive?
Well, Montclair has always had this jazz community. And I believe, from what I've seen and what I've documented, the jazz community is rooted in the Fourth Ward here in Montclair, especially among the black population, the young kids who like jazz came up. A lot of it was in the South End and in the Fourth Ward of Montclair. And that's primarily where I guess a lot of the music came from. In fact, I think music was more of an integrating factor between the races, especially in the 60s and 70s, than football was.
Wow.
A lot of people say it was sports. It wasn't. In fact, I know that a lot of the young black musicians who lived here, when I went to high school here, and even before, we went, I'll put it this way, in the 70s. One example, Glen Ridge and Montclair. Black musicians and the white musicians from Glen Ridge started intermingling, and with the parties and all. It was everything from jazz to Jimi Hendrix, to Marshall Tucker, to, you name it, Sly and the Family Stone, all that stuff. And that's where it really came together. In fact, Montclair, we got invited to a lot of parties in Verona. Verona was another one, where the black population, the kids, and mostly the black kids that came from the South End and the Fourth Ward, went up to Verona, went out to Clifton, the North Ward of Newark. We had black musicians. My band Tayada went down there, played in the Italian section down there. North 6th Street, 5th Street, all of that.
That's one of our first plays we had was North 6th Street.
That other side of Branchbrook Park across Bloomfield Avenue.
571.
And there's mob all over the place. You go down there, and the nice houses, the neighborhood changed. You make that left-hand turn on the North 6th Street, and you go down a couple of blocks, you're like, this is all middle class and upper middle class. Wait a minute, but there's no blacks there. It's all Italian.
Well, that's what happened.
The mob area.
Yeah, well, speaking on that, piggybacking on that, is that one of our first clubs was in Newark and Montclair. It was 571 Lounge.
Wow.
Woolsey Lounge, okay? And the place was burned. The place, the building is there now. We used to own that.
Wow.
Oh, this was it burned in 1960, wait a minute, 1960, back now, 1965.
Wow.
So I said, okay, building burned, Imperial.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
you want me to only call names, but okay.
Anthony Imperial.
And it was built. It was burned. Okay, it was a 3-family building.
Yeah.
Okay, you burned it down. 571 Lounge. That's where it is. The building's there now.
Yeah.
We used to own that, and it burned. Top floor burned, and I myself and some of my personal friends, I was young at that time. We took the building down. You know, burnt part of it. Took it down to the 2nd floor, and we were ready to open it again within 2 or 3 weeks, or within a month. They burned it again.
Wow.
Yeah. And this was 1968.
Yeah, that's before the Newark riots.
That was just before the Newark riots.
Just before the Newark riots.
And that's when it, that we walked away.
Yeah.
571 Lounge, with the buildings there, right across. This is for someone that's really want to think about it. Dickie D's on this
Dickie
side.
D's, yes.
Across the street from Dickie D's. The building's there now, and Rosa.
Yep.
It's Rosa Agency now.
Yeah, Rosa Agencies, big real estate agency in Newark. What is really fascinating?
Mm-hmm.
Montclair has these spider webs, especially when it comes to jazz and music and the arts.
Mm-hmm.
We've had musicians that branched out from Montclair that played in Newark. We had musicians that come from New York that played in Newark and then came to Montclair.
Exactly.
You know, and the DLV became one of the magnets that drew a lot of these musicians. I mean, I first started playing here in late 80s, right? I think it was late 80s. Late 80s. Because when I was doing it, I produced the original, I was one of the co-producers and co-founders of the original Montclair Blues and Jazz Festival, which ran for 14 years here. And the DLV did some of the shows there.
Yeah.
We started out at Lackawanna Plaza across the street.
Right.
You know, our first festival was, I think, 3-day festival. It's just Montclair's. There's so many hidden gems here. When we started doing this, jazz musicians, white and black, were coming all over the place. Yeah. We were doing jam sessions on Church Street. At the Montclair Bakery.
Wow.
Yeah, you know.
So we know Newark, at least present day, we know Newark to be one of the largest black cities in the country.
Right.
Absolutely. What was the difference between the jazz culture there versus here, which was more of a white, smaller town? Like you're playing a gig in Newark, and then you have to come straight over here and play the same gig here. What are you experiencing the differences in that night?
I think, I mean,
go ahead.
I just think basically Montclair is more or less considered, which it is, a suburban town, and more sophisticated, I would say. And by that I mean they were more sophisticated. And most of the population in Newark was considered more down to earth. You know, and I think basically that's one of the main differences. I think. Plus, when you have more people, you're gonna have more. There are more clubs, different clubs in Newark. In Newark during that time, you had bars and restaurants, practically every corner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every corner, and of course, you had more people too.
Sure.
You know, Montclair at that time, you only had like 13 licenses. And that included everything. You had like 13 liquor licenses. I don't remember them offhand, and only 3 at that time were blind. You know, and then we were all right bunched together, literally within 2 blocks together.
Yeah, 3 blocks.
So it's basically a nice little strip.
Yeah, it runs right together. That was a plus. That was a plus. It's, you know, but it made it easier for the town people to locate what's happening in terms of black people. You come there, you find everything. And to piggyback on that, and it was so crazy too. During that time, I remember practically everything that happened negative, you know, they would refer to quite a few times. Refer to it happening near the DLV.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything in particular come to mind?
Well, I don't want to talk about
it. Okay, no problem. No problem.
But you know, if it was negative, it was
the DLV.
If it wasn't in the DLV, it was near the DLV.
Right.
Yeah, that's what the paper would indicate, you know, so. It was that kind of thing.
I will,
Gotcha.
What,
It happened in Glen Ridge, but it was near DLV.
Yeah, exactly. Hit a kill. Yeah.
what got me kind of angry several times was that I would ask certain people, "Well, man, why don't you come down to the DLV?"
Mm.
First thing out of their mouth, and this is absolutely true. Yeah, but there's black people down there.
Yeah.
Is it safe?
Yeah.
And right now, today,
That's true.
there are some people who I've been trying to get to come down here.
Yeah, that's true.
Performers or just people hang out?
Huh?
Performers or just people to hang out?
Just people.
People straight out.
Mm.
Yeah.
Performers, it's a place to play.
Right.
Yeah.
George here offers a stage,
Mm-hmm.
a place to play,
Yeah.
and it's brought a community together.
Mm-hmm.
This place has now brought an entire community together, townwide.
Right.
But there are certain people, and a lot of them from the old school, and there's some that I've heard rumors. Some people, I heard that place is dangerous.
Yeah. I've seen
Dangerous.
that. Right.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I've been there a few times. I could have taken a nap on the bar and been all right.
Yeah.
I mean,
You still have, I don't mean to cut you off, but you still have, which is so true, that you still have people come out and say, I've lived in this town for X amount of years, and the first time I've been in here, I still hear it right to this day, first time I've been here.
and when they walk through the door,
Yeah,
they look and go,
yeah,
"Oh man, this is cool, man! I
Right.
like this place.
yeah,
Such a nice vibe."
yeah.
And even Richard mentioned,
Oh yeah.
and when the article I wrote for the Dispatch,
Mhm.
back in 2015, something like
Yeah.
2015. This has a vibe, a Harlem vibe, a New York vibe, and it does.
Right.
It does. And that's what people come in here immediately. They drop their guard.
Yeah.
Everything is at ease.
Right.
It's
funny too because when I said I was doing this story, I told someone I was doing a story, and somebody asked me like, "People still go to DLV?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah."
We still go there, right?
Like, but it also reminds me because I grew up with hip hop,
Yeah.
and some of what you talking about before about people just being afraid like to cross that line. I was considered like the hip hop community like a fishbowl, and there's some folks who want to go right up to the glass of the fishbowl, look in, but they're afraid to put their hand in because they're afraid they'll get bit.
Yeah.
And the ones that do end up having a ball. It's a fine time.
Well, you know.
And I think a lot of times because of generations, we tend to pull those two genres of music apart when they have such a shared history, just in terms of their reception even, and how they're considered. Because at one point, hip hop wasn't considered music, and jazz, along the same lines, it wasn't real or proper music.
Yeah. Well, jazz has always been a protest music.
Right. And same with hip hop.
Yes.
Let me just say this too. It wasn't all white people too. That
Sure.
No, I'm saying a lot of black
Yeah.
people, all people, white
Uh-huh.
people. Said, oh wow, I'm not going in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Exactly.
And even today,
Mm-hmm.
you go up to Jake's, different other places,
Right.
Montclair, you'll see more black people there
Mhm.
than here.
Yeah.
And my drinks are cheaper. And
I got that bill the other day and I smiled. I was like, "You sure?"
No, I was good, but
Yeah.
which is all good.
Right.
Which is, I take it as it comes, and leave it as it is.
Right. And again, this is a very specific vibe.
Yeah.
This is come and chill, and not everybody necessarily wants to go out and chill.
That's it.
But there are a lot of us that want to sit at the corner of the bar and just talk to some strangers and have a good time.
Yeah.
I ended up chatting with Steve half the other night, who's been coming here forever.
Yeah.
And even today, saying that brings me to the next part, and this is going to make you uncomfortable. One of the things I noticed in hanging out here is that there is a reverence for you.
Okay.
I've never been to a bar where the patrons are making sure the owner has a seat.
Oh, really?
Where you sitting? Where you at? What do you need? And
That's it, right over here.
and I take that to not just like as valuable as you are, it's also because they're valuing the entire establishment and what you built here.
It's good. Thank you.
Well, look, when you walk in the door,
Mhm.
in most bars, you see a row of televisions.
Right.
You walk in here, what do you see?
People in
No, what
the
do you
stage.
see?
Oh, the memorabilia.
see?
Yeah, right. Art and
Art
memorabilia.
on the wall.
Yeah.
So this place is about art.
Mhm.
And George is a purveyor of folk music.
Mhm.
He likes folk music.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's folk music.
Yeah. We do jazz or blues.
Right.
We did blues for quite a few years, just on Sundays.
Mm.
Yeah, I
Just
think it's
blue.
coming back in April, right?
Yeah. And it first Sunday in April. First Sunday, April 3rd, we'll start again on Sunday.
I'm gonna ask you first. What do you think is the legacy of DLV? What is the mark that is left on this town?
Well, I hope
Because he's gonna be humble, so I'm not even gonna ask him first.
Okay. I mean, I think it's not only has left a good mark, but it's leaving it even better than a good mark, leaving a great mark here. I've been more closely associated with the DLV in the last 12 years, 12, 13 years, 14 years, and I've seen the change, you know, and I think when we progressed from just having a group coming in, and then we had the jam session with Charlie Jones, and then first it was Gene Phipps, from the famous Phipps family, and his family's really associated with Montclair from having lived here. We had Charlie Jones, Earl Sauls. Gene Phipps turned it over to me. And then I brought Charlie Jones and Earl Sauls, and Earl Sauls plays with Warren Vichet, very famous trumpet player a lot. And Charlie Jones.
You brought Richard in.
Huh?
I said you even brought Richard in.
Yes. I brought Richard in. And then I did it for 5 years. Then it transitioned to Richard, and Richard's been doing it. But you see, once people walk through that door and find out what's in here, it's like, wow. It's like, why haven't I known about this before? Well, open your mouth.
Right.
You know.
And we try to make people feel comfortable,
Yeah, he does.
I try to make people feel comfortable. You come in and you're welcome to come in. The only thing I'm into people, but I'm not into names. When people come in, I don't care if it's a lady by herself or whomever, I think when people go out, they want to be to themselves. And if they engage me in a conversation, I engage them. Other than that, I leave you alone, because I think you just want to chill. You want to chill, And I and that's the reason why I really don't, approach people too much. May I say, how you doing? Blah, 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 that kind of thing. But, because you want to chill. And I want you to feel comfortable. I want you to come back. I stay very touchy when it comes down to foul language with the men. Yeah, I know. If you by yourself, you and your person, okay, keep your language to yourself. I don't want you to necessarily share that with everybody up and down the farm. And that's because my mother's a lady, my daughter's a lady, my wife's a lady, and my other people, everybody a lady, and women are ladies. Ladies, treat them as that while you're in here. Now you do what you want to do once you leave here, but don't get too loud and too boastful with foul language. That's the way I was brought up, and that's the way I try to go. One of my legacy I pass on in here. Just respect yourself and respect the other person. Now, a bunch of men is different, And
that definitely permeates through the entire vibe of the lounge. Now, you guys have been low-key name-dropping folks who've played here the entire time. Can you run down a list of some of the greats that have played here, just so people know?
Well,
the John Patton guy.
John Patton, David Murray, great saxophone player, and of course Ed Cherry. We've had Radham Schwartz plays here. Cecil Brooks has been in here.
Why do you sound surprised? It's like, oh yeah. There's been so many that you forget.
Well, you know what? You remember I said I really know the name.
Right.
I'm into face.
Sure, yeah.
Face, and I tell everybody, oh, you don't remember that? I said, yeah. But if you act up, now I remember you.
Right.
That's my thing. I remember your name then because there have been a lot that come in and have bought out of here. Okay, I don't allow them in here.
Right.
And you know why? Because they go against my rule.
Right.
It may not be right, but it's my standard. And I really find it's not that easy being in the business, especially this type of business.
Right.
Because a lot of us have always been, as many people, you have a lot of issues and a lot of problems. And then they come in. And once you start serving them alcohol,
it gets slippery.
Get a little testy.
So now, if you don't have your standards, they'll have their standards, and you won't be here.
Right.
And the town of Montclair, I've been through that with the town too. I keep them out of my business, and by me keeping the way I keep them out of my business is by doing the things
that you do.
That.
So, 50th anniversary. Congratulations again.
Mm-hmm.
What are the plans to celebrate the milestone?
I'm leaving to my daughter.
Okay. I'll hit her up.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I was talking to her. I was like, yeah, I can't remember what day she said it was, but there's an event planned, and I'm getting mugs made and merch and blah. Like she's raring. She's going.
Yeah. And she just really wanted to just within the last year, 2 years to really come involved. And so strange. The strange part about the whole thing is I don't know how it happened, but it just happened. It happened on the day, incorporated on the day of my birthday, which is March 14th.
All right.
Which is next Monday. Next Monday. Yeah, that's the day it was incorporated. I guess it just so happened that way. So
and it left you off the name.
Yes.
Incorporating your birthday and still left you off the name. That's terrible.
Well, you know, the funny.
We're gonna add a G for your birthday.
The funny thing about some of the people now that they've become more comfortable, they don't say that. Yeah, we're going to George's joint.
Right.
George's joint.
But that's I don't have any real plans, and it took me a long time to be considered a business person. Which I'm a social worker by trade,
right?
And I've always considered myself I'm a social worker, really, And
which also explains the vibe in here in terms of keeping things chill.
Yeah, I guess it does.
He knows how to do it.
Right.
It may not. I come across harsh at times, but sometimes you really have to be. You have to let people know what you stand for and what you want.
Mm-hmm.
If not, they will run you.
Right.
You especially again because what you're selling again. I repeat myself. You're not selling tires,
right?
Or bubble gum. You're selling stuff that many times people come in with certain issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you give them some, alcohol, sausage George used, you're gonna get that vibe.
Right.
So and that's one of the reasons why I try to stay where I am. I try.
Thanks again to everybody for watching. If you're interested in checking out the Bruce Tyler Archive, it's available for viewing at the Montclair Public Library. And again, the DLV will be celebrating their 50th anniversary all year long, so be sure to stop by and check them out as well. If you want to see more episodes of Our Montclair, you can go to montclairlocal.news/Our Montclair, or you can check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Montclair Local. And all episodes are also available as a podcast on your favorite service. Thanks again for watching. Be good.